There comes a moment in life when something quietly shifts within you. It is not dramatic. There is no announcement, no sudden clarity that explains everything at once. Instead, it feels like a subtle discomfort with the life you've been living. The routines that once felt safe begin to feel restrictive. The voices around you grow louder yet less meaningful. You start to sense that the path you are on was chosen more out of expectation than truth. This is often the first sign that your journey is about to change. At this stage, many people ignore that inner signal. They tell themselves to be practical, to fit in, to follow what has already been approved by others. But for some, the voice does not fade. It becomes steadier, clearer, more persistent. It reminds you that your life is not meant to be a copy of someone else's story. It calls you toward a path that feels uncertain, but honest. This is where the courage to walk alone begins. Walking alone is often misunderstood. It is not about isolation or arrogance. It is not about believing you are better than others. In fact, it often comes from deep sensitivity and awareness. You begin to realize that staying in places where you no longer belong slowly disconnects you from yourself. The courage to walk alone is the courage to stop betraying your inner truth just to maintain external comfort. When you choose to listen to yourself, something powerful happens. You stop asking for permission to be who you are. You stop shaping your life around applause, approval, and validation. Instead, you begin to ask deeper questions. What truly matters to me? What feels aligned with my values? What kind of life do I want to wake up to each day? These questions do not have easy answers, and that is why most people avoid them. But those who are willing to face them step onto a different path. This path is quieter than the ones most people walk. There is less noise, less comparison, and less reassurance. But in that quiet, you begin to hear yourself more clearly. You become aware of your strengths, your fears, and your deepest desires. You learn that solitude does not weaken you. It strengthens you. It gives you clarity. It teaches you self-respect. The courage to walk alone is not something you are born with. It is something you develop when comfort starts costing you your authenticity. It emerges when you realize that living a life that does not feel like your own is far more painful than facing uncertainty. Walking alone is not the rejection of others. It is the acceptance of yourself. If you are feeling drawn to a different direction, if you sense that your path is separating from the crowd, this is not a mistake. It is a sign. Some journeys require solitude because they are shaping you into someone stronger, wiser, and more grounded. The courage to walk alone is the beginning of becoming who you truly are. Why most people fear walking alone? Most people fear walking alone, not because the path is impossible, but because it removes the comfort of certainty. From a young age, we are taught to follow patterns that have already been accepted. We are shown examples of what success should look like, how life should unfold, and what choices are considered safe. When you follow the crowd, you inherit its rules and its reassurance. You are rarely questioned, rarely challenged, and rarely forced to look too deeply within yourself. Walking alone, however, strips away these borrowed certainties. The fear begins with uncertainty. When you step away from the familiar, there is no clear map. There is no guarantee that your path will lead to success, approval, or even understanding. Humans naturally seek stability, and the collective offers that stability through shared beliefs and expectations. To walk alone is to step into a space where you must make decisions without constant confirmation. This level of responsibility can feel overwhelming, especially for those who have been conditioned to measure their worth through external validation. Another reason people fear walking alone is the fear of judgment. The moment you choose a different path, questions arise. Why are you doing this? What if you fail? Who do you think you are? These questions do not always come from malice. Often they come from people projecting their own fears onto you. When others see someone walking alone, it challenges their own choices. Your courage becomes a mirror. And not everyone is comfortable with what they see reflected back at them. There is also the fear of loneliness. Humans are social beings, and the idea of being separated from the group can trigger deep emotional discomfort. Many people would rather remain in unfulfilling situations than face the temporary emptiness that comes with solitude. What they do not realize is that loneliness and solitude are not the same. Loneliness is the absence of connection. Solitude is the presence of self. Walking alone often begins with loneliness, but it gradually transforms into a deeper connection with who you truly are. Fear also comes from identity loss. When you walk the same path as everyone else, your identity is reinforced by your environment. When you walk alone, you are forced to redefine yourself. You can no longer rely on labels, roles, or comparisons. This can feel unsettling, but it is also liberating. It gives you the opportunity to build an identity rooted in values rather than expectations. Most people do not fear walking alone because they are weak. They fear it because they have never been taught to trust themselves. Society rewards conformity and punishes deviation, often subtly. But teach those who overcome this fear discover something powerful. They learn that the crowd does not always lead to fulfillment, and that the path less traveled often leads to authenticity. Walking alone is not easy, and it is not meant for everyone. But for those who feel the call, the fear itself is part of the initiation. It is the threshold you must cross to reclaim your autonomy. The fear does not disappear. You simply become stronger than it. The inner strength required, walking alone, demands a kind of strength that is rarely talked about. It is not the strength that seeks attention or proves itself through domination or noise. It is a quiet strength, built slowly through self-awareness, discipline, and trust. This inner strength becomes necessary the moment you step away from familiar paths, because without it, doubt quickly fills the silence. When there is no crowd to follow, no constant reassurance, you are left with yourself, and that encounter requires courage. The first form of inner strength required is self-trust. When you walk alone, you no longer have the comfort of consensus. Your decisions are no longer supported by popular opinion. You must learn to trust your judgment, even when it feels fragile or uncertain. This does not mean believing you are always right. It means being willing to take responsibility for your choices and learn from their consequences. Self-trust is built through action, reflection, and honesty. Each step you take strengthens your confidence in your ability to navigate life on your own terms. Another essential aspect of inner strength is emotional resilience. Walking alone exposes you to moments of doubt, isolation, and vulnerability. There will be days when progress feels invisible and purpose feels distant. In these moments, emotional resilience keeps you grounded. It allows you to sit with discomfort without escaping it, instead of numb. Being yourself with distractions or validation, you learn to face your emotions directly. This resilience is what transforms challenges into lessons and setbacks into growth. Inner strength also requires the ability to stand firm in your values. When you choose a solitary path, you will be questioned, misunderstood, and sometimes criticized. People may attempt to pull you back toward what feels familiar to them. Without strong values, it becomes easy to doubt yourself and compromise your direction. But when your values are clear, they act as an internal compass. They guide your decisions even when the path ahead is unclear. Solitude plays a powerful role in developing inner strength. Time alone removes the noise of external influence and allows you to hear your own thoughts clearly. In solitude, you confront your fears, desires, and contradictions. You begin to understand what truly motivates you. This understanding becomes a source of stability. You are no longer easily shaken by opinions or trends because your sense of self is rooted within. Perhaps the most important strength required is patience. Walking alone is rarely a fast journey. Progress often happens quietly and gradually. There may be long periods without visible results or recognition. Patience teaches you to respect the process rather than rush toward outcomes. It reminds you that meaningful growth takes time and that depth cannot be rushed. Inner strength is not something you find once and keep forever. It is something you build daily through choices, discipline, and reflection. Walking alone reveals both your weaknesses and your potential. And with each step, you become more grounded, more self-aware, and more capable. This is the strength that allows you to continue even when the road is silent, uncertain, and unseen. The pain and growth of solitude. The path of solitude is often romanticized, but in truth, it is one of the most challenging experiences a person can face. Walking alone exposes you to layers of yourself that are easy to avoid when surrounded by noise and distraction. In solitude, there is nowhere to hide. The silence becomes a mirror reflecting your fears, regrets, and unresolved emotions. This is why many people turn back. Not because the path is wrong, but because the discomfort is unfamiliar and intense. Pain is an unavoidable part of this journey. When you step away from the crowd, you may lose relationships that once felt permanent. People who were comfortable with who you used to be may not understand who you are becoming. This loss can feel deeply personal even when it is necessary. The pain of being misunderstood, judged, or forgotten can weigh heavily on the heart. But this pain is not punishment. It is a process of shedding what no longer aligns with your growth. Solitude forces you to confront truths you may have ignored for years. It reveals patterns, attachments, and habits that were formed out of fear rather than intention. Facing these truths can be uncomfortable, even overwhelming. Yet it is through this confrontation that growth begins. Pain becomes a teacher. It highlights where healing is needed and where strength must be developed. Without solitude, these lessons often remain buried beneath distraction. Growth in solitude is slow and often invisible. There are no external milestones, no applause, and no immediate validation. Progress happens internally through shifts in perception, clarity, and emotional maturity. You begin to respond rather than react. You learn to sit with discomfort instead of escaping it. Over time, this creates a deep sense of self-respect. You realize that you can endure difficult emotions without losing yourself. What begins as loneliness gradually transforms into freedom, the absence of constant influence. Hence allows you to redefine your values and priorities. You no longer make choices based on fear of rejection or desire for approval. Instead, you act from alignment. Solitude teaches you that peace does not come from being surrounded by people, but from being at peace with yourself. There is also a quiet empowerment that emerges through this process. When you survive emotional isolation and inner struggle, you realize that your strength does not depend on external support. You become less reactive to opinions and more grounded in your truth. This does not make you distant or cold, it makes you intentional. You choose connections based on depth rather than dependency. The pain of solitude is not meant to break you. It is meant to refine you. Just as pressure shapes raw material into something stronger, solitude shapes character. It removes what is unnecessary and strengthens what is essential. Growth born from solitude is lasting because it is earned through awareness, resilience, and honesty. Walking alone will test you, but it will also reveal you. In the silence, you discover who you are without expectations, roles, or masks. And in that discovery, you find a freedom that few people ever experience. This is the quiet reward of choosing a path that only the brave are willing to walk. The inner transformation that happens when you walk alone. At some point on the solitary path, something subtle but powerful begins to change inside you. It is not loud. It does not announce itself. But one day you realize you are no longer seeking permission to be yourself. The opinions that once controlled your choices lose their grip. The need to be understood by everyone fades. This is the quiet transformation that only walking alone can bring. When you are surrounded by people, you often shape yourself to fit expectations. You adjust your words, soften your truths, and hide parts of yourself to avoid conflict or rejection. But when you walk alone, there is no audience to perform for, no one to impress, no one to disappoint. In that space, you finally meet your real self, not the version shaped by approval, but the version shaped by honesty. Solitude forces clarity. Without constant noise, distractions, and outside voices, your thoughts become sharper. You start to notice patterns in your life. You understand why certain relationships failed, why certain dreams were abandoned, and why some fears kept repeating. This awareness can be uncomfortable, but it is necessary. Growth does not happen in comfort. It happens when you are willing to look at yourself without filters. Walking alone also builds emotional strength. When there is no one to lean on immediately, you learn how to hold yourself steady. You learn how to sit with uncertainty, disappointment, and fear without running away from them. Instead of seeking escape, you develop resilience. You stop collapsing under pressure because you have already survived your own silence. This inner strength changes how you move through the world. You become less reactive and more grounded. Criticism no longer shakes you easily because your sense of worth is no longer borrowed from others. Praise feels lighter too because you are no longer dependent on it. You act from alignment, not validation. Another transformation is the awakening of self-trust. When you make decisions alone and face the consequences alone, you begin to trust your judgment. Even mistakes become valuable because they are yours. You stop fearing failure as something that defines you and start seeing it as something that refines you. Confidence grows not from always being right, but from knowing you can handle being wrong. Perhaps the most powerful change is this: you stop feeling lonely even when you are alone. Solitude becomes a place of renewal rather than emptiness. You discover peace in your own presence. You realize that walking alone was never about isolation, but about becoming whole. This is why the solitary path transforms you. It strips away illusions, strengthens your core, and reconnects you with your true self. And once this transformation happens, you can never go back to being someone who lives only to be accepted. Conclusion: embracing the path of the brave. Walking alone is never easy. It is a path filled with uncertainty, silence, and moments of doubt. But it is also a path of profound growth, clarity, and liberation. By choosing to walk alone, you make a statement that your life belongs to you and that you will no longer shape yourself to fit the expectations of others. This choice requires courage, because courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to move forward despite it. To walk alone is to embrace fear, uncertainty, and solitude as necessary companions on a journey toward authenticity. The world may not understand you. People may question your choices, doubt your intentions, or try to pull you back into the safety of the crowd. These experiences are inevitable, but they do not define your journey. What defines it is your willingness to continue forward, to trust yourself, and to honor the path that aligns with your truth. Walking alone teaches you that life is not about fitting in, but about standing firm in your values, even when doing so is difficult. The crowd may offer comfort, but it rarely offers freedom. True freedom emerges when you are willing to be alone, even if only for a while, in pursuit of your purpose. Along this path, you learn the meaning of patience. The process of growth is often slow, and progress may be invisible at first. You may feel uncertain about whether your efforts are worthwhile. But every step you take, every decision made in alignment with your inner truth, strengthens your resilience and deepens your understanding of yourself. You begin to realize that the journey itself is the reward. Each challenge, each moment of discomfort, and each decision to keep moving forward builds character, wisdom, and inner peace. Walking alone also allows you to connect with your own power. Without the constant influence of others, you learn to rely on yourself, to trust your intuition, and to embrace your own voice. Solitude transforms fear into confidence, confusion into clarity, and uncertainty into purpose. You begin to recognize that the path of the brave is not one of loneliness, but of profound self-discovery. It teaches you to value depth over approval, integrity over acceptance, and truth over comfort. Ultimately, the courage to walk alone is an act of self-respect. It is a commitment to live authentically, even when the world does not understand or approve. It is a reminder that life's most meaningful experiences often require stepping away from the familiar and venturing into the unknown. Those who walk alone discover strength, wisdom, and freedom that cannot be found on crowded paths. They learn to embrace their individuality, trust their own judgment, and honor the journey that is uniquely theirs. If you are called to walk this path, know that you are not weak, nor are you lost. You are courageous. You are awake. You are following a road that only the brave are willing to take, a road that leads to authenticity, fulfillment, and a life lived on your own terms. The world may challenge you, and the journey may test you, but in choosing to walk alone, you choose yourself, and that is the greatest courage of all.